looking at different planets, in theory, I should look at some planets and go, it looks good, but it's not for me. And that's what your brand should do as well. It goes the same way for websites. Like, you almost go into it like, who am I going to upset? But in actual fact, most recruitment businesses make quite a lot of money from placements. They don't need that many clients to do really, really well. So actually, by doubling down on those people you do want to attract, as opposed to worrying about putting other people off, is way more impactful.
Welcome back to another episode of RecTalk. I'm your host, Nitin Sharma, founder of RecTools.io, host of this wonderful podcast, RecTalk, co-founder of RecCircle, and a proud member of the Recruitment Curry Club, Curry Cartel. My guest today is from the RecTools recommended Kitto. You'll know him from all the cool videos they put out, the Kitto question, and a whole range of the cool marketing stuff that they get up to. And that's Kris Holland. Kris, thank you for joining me.
Cheers, mate. Hiya.
Hey, mate. Cheers. So this episode is going to be really interesting, right? This is designed for those of you who you finally accepted that recruitment isn't a sales job. You have accepted that marketing plays a huge part of what recruitment actually is, and kind of how your inbound and your outreach should really center around a strong, robust marketing strategy. But then that's where it kind of stops, because actually you don't know what marketing strategy is. And Kris is kindly going to give us some of his time today to really just drill down onto what a good marketing strategy looks like. What does that need to entail? What does that need to encompass? And really, how do you start delivering that yourself before you then start looking at, outsourcing that or offshoring that to different teams? So, mate, first of all, thank you for joining me.
Yeah, no worries. No, it's a pleasure to be back. I think, I think it's really important to try and give anything marketing wise is all about giving and trying to make it so that people see you as a value add. And so hopefully with this, if we just talk through how to do that and how we put together strategies, and that'll be a useful thing for anyone listening, watching.
Absolutely. I think it's important, I think, to understand that you don't just kind of sell this stuff, you live and breathe it. You guys are just entering into your second year. What an explosive first year you've had in terms of, revenue growth, projects that you've got involved in, work that you've won against quote unquote competitors and so on. Give us a bit of insight into that first, and then we'll jump into the strategy piece.
Yeah. So I mean, we're about to enter year. We're about to come to the end of our second year now. So we started September 2023. We've grown from being just me then, scared with a laptop, to a team today of 11. We're based in Leeds, but as you can imagine, we are very, very mobile. So we've got people in London, we've got people in Leeds, and we've got a team offshore as well, who are all absolutely unbelievable. So I set up the business initially with a view to, I've been on the tools very, very recently. I literally finished my job as a director of RevOps, won the Recruitment Marketing Award in 2023 after I'd actually left my last job. So it's that recent of shutting my laptop, opening it again on the Monday and starting Kitto. And it was always with the premise that we wanted to be speak recruiter and really appeal to that recruitment only ideology, and helping using marketing as a sales enablement tool to help make more placements, because it's such an important part of that day-to-day workflow for recruiters, in my opinion. And yours, I think. So and where we found ourselves today is that our sweet spot is really that sort of mid-size and up group of clients of recruitment businesses. That's where we can add our most value, I think. So sort of probably 20-25 heads up to, we've got clients who are global multi-brand businesses with 8, 9, 10 brands across lots of different countries, and we do all their marketing for them. So I
think one of the things that people don't really consider is that actually to have a good marketing kind of output, right? Brand plays a big part in it. Storytelling plays a massive part in it. People don't buy a product, they buy a story, they buy an outcome, And if you're just a kind of run-of-the-mill yeah, we sort of do everything else that every other recruitment business does, and we just happen to be slightly faster at it, or we get more lucky than our competitors. But and if you're selling that story of well, we all fish out the same pond kind of mentality, well, that's hard for a marketing agency to get behind, right? You've got to get behind someone or a brand that's got somewhat of a story to tell, and maybe they just don't know how to tell it, or have got something of interest or something unique about them that makes you think, fucking hell, yeah, okay, we've got something here we can work with.
Yeah, 100%. Like every recruitment company, big pet hate of mine is when recruitment companies' tagline is that they're redefining recruitment or restarting recruitment or restructuring recruitment or any of that, because they're not, and you don't need to. Like every single one of our clients does the exact same thing, more or less, whether it's contract, perm, RPO, MSP, like whatever. They all do the same thing, but they are all completely unique. And what's unique isn't necessarily their service offering, it's a combination of things, usually markets, geographies, approaches, people, experiences, techniques, tech stacks, like ethos, methodology, like any of that stuff. And yeah, I think that a lot of recruitment companies are recruitment companies and don't have a brand. It's been something they chucked together early doors and then didn't really come back to and pay any serious attention to. And I see that as a really big part of our job, like, that story, but like helping businesses know what their story is and then how to articulate it. And that's what I think, and that's why I think, I think recruitment, I think a lot of people, if you've got a marketing agency that, and I don't know, I'm not necessarily slagging off marketing agencies that aren't in recruitment, but if you get a marketing agency, in my experience, that isn't in recruitment, and you get them to come in and work on like a recruitment agency, they will inevitably tell you that you are redefining recruitment, and that's what your job plan is going to be, or it's going to be like, it's just going to be that like surface level or just below surface level stuff. Whereas what we need to do is really position the industry as being, not getting hung up on the fact we do recruitment, getting hung up on the impact that we have for our clients, the problems that we solve, and the business problems that we solve, and the fact that we're a consultancy, and yeah, but how you do that bit is basically putting loads of graft and groundwork in and asking loads of questions and spending loads of time with the people in the business. And that goes from the CEO but right down to the consultants as well. So yeah, I think unpicking that story and spending a bit of time on it is super important. Yeah.
I delivered a talk recently where I talked about that kind of mentality shift that's needed between calling yourself, and it's not just about calling yourself, sort of behavior as well, right? But starting with the kind of the language around, stop calling yourself a recruitment agency and start calling yourself a recruitment consultancy, because people pick up on that, and that mentality is driven by, you're not trying to sell, you're not selling candidates, you're not selling vacancies. Do you know what I mean? You're a consultancy, and actually end-to-end recruitment should just be one of the things that you do. Salary insights, market insights. There's a big employment law change that's coming in terms of contractual law, and that's being introduced. And we know that the majority of the recruitment, the majority of the business industry in the UK is SMB, who haven't got an in-house HR manager or HR director, and therefore probably don't know about some of the changes that are happening. And that's your job. Your job is to tell and educate and uplift these people, so that when they actually do need that end-to-end recruitment piece, you're top of mind, not the person that had the silver tongue or dropped into their inbox at the right time or presented them with the right spec at the right time. Because I feel like those days are just coming to an end. A lot of the agencies I'm speaking to and the consultancies I'm speaking to are struggling to pick up traditional vacancies through the traditional routes, and they're now starting to take marketing more seriously. So let's shift over to that then. So I want to take it seriously. I want to do some cool stuff now. I know I've got to put a strategy together. Where do I start? What have I got to consider? What's the first thing I should really be looking at?
Yeah, so I think what I want to do here is hopefully talk through how to do the strategy step by step, or how we do it step by step. And yeah, similarly to what you mentioned there, like I did a talk not too long ago for some of the guys at SourceFlow and their audience and did it on this sort of topic. And yeah, I've the way that we do our strategies and a bit of a methodology for it is like I think really straightforward and really simple and easy to understand. And if you're a marketer, you can follow it. And if
Yeah.
you're a non-marketer, you can follow it and you can articulate it and how to do it. And it's a universe is how we do it. To answer your question before, where we start with our universe and our strategy is the audience, which is the rockets in the universe, as we talk about.
These are all these rockets.
People buzzing about,
Yeah.
having a right laugh. Your Jetsons, your other rockets are available. And you've got to start with them because, like, the healthiest place for a recruitment company to start with their marketing, their messaging, and their brand is that nobody cares what recruitment company's got to say. That's where you should start off. Nobody cares, mate. Like, nobody cares because all they care about is themselves.
Yeah.
So you've got to then you go, right, okay, well, you're starting off with your messaging like almost on the back foot. And so they've got to go like, well, where do we start? Well, we think about who our target audience is. So you build out that like ICP, that persona, that profile, whatever you want to call it. And then you think about what are their goals, what are their challenges, what are their hopes, what are their dreams, what are their worries, what are they interested in, what are they excited about. And now the go-to response, when I sit in a room with be it a director, a CEO, a consultant, whatever, and I say, who is your ICP? Right, well, it's CEOs of fast-growing tech companies. Mega, right, cool. What are their problems? They can't find people. Yeah. That's you see them as having that problem. What are their other problems? Like,
what are their problems? Not
yeah.
What do you want their problem to be?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's like, so the first step is having those conversations with those people who are your ideal candidate and customer profile.
How many ICPs and personas is too many, or how many is the right amount? Because the truth is there are businesses out there who are, especially at sort of 20 headcount upwards, will have different verticals and work in different sectors, or there are even like generalist recruitment businesses out there still, which boggles my mind. And they're going to have a range of different ICPs, right? So, or personas. How many do you think is too many? Because obviously you've got to talk to me.
I think it's as many as you. I think it's as many as you're comfortable managing. Like it. Like I think you. It depends on the business. Like if you're it's about being realistic, and I think this is a mistake that again companies with small resource marketing teams have, is that like you've got you might have which is a problem. This is a problem. You might have a 50-person business, right? And they've got 1 or 2 marketing people.
Yeah.
And they're already under the cosh in a big way. And then they've maybe got 5 verticals who all do quite different things in that 50-person business. Now, a lot of marketers or even execs or whatever will say everyone has to get the equal amount of treatment and equal amount of investment in time in what they're doing, because if they don't, then life science is going to be unhappy, and we don't want life science to be unhappy because you're doing all the work with tech, and we don't want tech to be unhappy because you're doing all the work with construction. But like realistically, like you can't. You've got to like sprint at these things. You've got to invest, go hard and go quick, and really go for it. So my advice would probably be, if you've got a 5 vertical 50-person business and you're part of a very small team, like just do it step by step. Eventually, at the end of a year or the end of 18 months, the end of 2 years, you might have 5 different personas, ideally for each one. There might be some overlap, because you want to really be making these personas, as I said before, like based on their problems and their challenges and their motivations. And if you do it like that, then you start to see overlap between some of the industries you might be working in. For example, like, I don't know, if you are a business that, always deals with, if you look through, and again, if you're trying to find out who you target and you don't even know who that is, then look at your invoices over the last year. Who pays all your invoices? Who's all your comms with? Who are your mates with at the minute? Because it's like, I hate HR. I never go to HR. Talent acquisition now, they're just slowing me down, man. They're a waste of time. Like, they're just doing a whatever job and stuff like that. And then actually, when I get into it, 9 times out of 10 I go to the line. 9 times out of 10 they get past me to HR. Then I have a great relationship with HR. I do a good job, and then I get 20 roles out of them. So why don't we cut out the middleman? Because also, if you're trying to interact with and add value to HR people, then that's a little bit more industry agnostic. They've probably got more similar challenges and problems across the board.
Yeah, regardless of how many verticals you've got in your business.
Exactly, yeah.
Actually, if everything's going through TA or HR, focus on the problems that they're having outside of the usual shit of they've got too many applications or they've not got enough applications and they can't find good people. Right? Okay, but what are they worried about? What's going on in their lives?
And it's how do I take my business? We've just got a load of money invested in us. How on earth do I hire 100 people? Well, I bring in someone who's just hired 100 people and have them talk to them on a panel about it and go like that. It's just answering that problem. And I'm also a big fan of really specific, vertically focused content, which can be really niche. But you just got to say to people like, look, we're going to invest in these people at this point, and then we're going to do you afterwards, or we're not going to do you because you're not interested in us. So you just got to like pick your battles, I think, man, and go through that. So yeah, like that.
From a mentality perspective, especially for a lot of business owners, it's kind of counterintuitive, right? Because if you think we're taught to cast them in sales, and recruitment is not a sales job, which is why this method doesn't work. But the fact is, we're taught to cast the net far and wide and try and reach as many prospects and as many people as possible and kind of reel it in. And do you know what? Some will get away and some won't get away and some will do this and some will do that. But at the end of the day, we'll have some business out of the end of it. And what we're now sort of sitting here saying, people like yourselves, people like me are going, no, really drill down to, you don't want to send something out to 3,000 people. You want to send it to 5 people because those 5 people are really fine-tuned and this message hits home for them. And then you send another message to these 10 people, rather than going, I'm just going to send a shopping list mailer out to 3,000 clients and hope that one of them is like, oh yeah, vacancy.
Yeah, Matt, and I think you probably sweet spot somewhere between 5,000 and 3,000. But like, it's and I'd say it applies to sales as well. Like, it's RevOps. It's this idea of like RevOps or go to market or whatever you want to do. Like how every other successful industry does it. It's based on this sort of thing, which is like is defining who you're going after, creating that profile, and then creating a list of people who fit that profile, and then going after them again and again and again and again and again and again. How do you do it again and again and again and again? Well, if I say to you, well, everyone, recruiters do it. Like, talk about and share all this stuff about touch points.
Yeah.
It takes 20 touch points to make a sale, or it takes 50 touch points to make a B2B enterprise level sale, or whatever it needs to be. Like, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but like, well, all right, it would take, and you accept that as a recruiter. But then every time you get a new candidate, you're trying to e-shot them to brand new companies because you know that you can't e-shot the same company twice in a month because you'll piss them off.
Yeah.
But it's like, but then you're also saying you need 25 touch points. Well, all right, well, let's think about it then. If that's what you believe, how on earth do you contact someone 25 times without them telling you, I hate you, like, please leave me alone, you're stalking me?
Without it becoming harassment as a service.
Well, yeah, and the answer is they've got to actually welcome it. They've got to actually look forward to it. They've got to actually take something from it. They've got to take value from it. And then, so how would you do that? Well, that is sort of broad strokes what marketing is adding value to those people. So it sets up the opportunity to make a sale. But
this is where that consultancy piece comes in, though, right? Because actually, you guys are, as recruitment consultancies, in the center of everything that's going on. You've got, if you cast our minds back, you had the work from home and remote working and kind of hybrid debate. Well, actually, you were speaking to thousands of candidates a week. That information should have been collated and then presented back to prospects, not with are you currently hiring? Give us a vacancy, but just as hey, this is some interesting information you might want to know. Here's what's happening, like salaries wise. We're seeing an uplift in salaries, but actually granularly, this is what we're finding is actually going on. Here's what's happening with notice periods. Here's what's happening with employment law. Here's what's happening with workers' rights regulations, AWR, IR35. All of that are your touch points, right?
Yeah, I mean that should all be in your CRM. If you've got your CRM set up properly, like that's easy. Then you pull your reports, and then that makes all your insights. But I've yet to meet one that is set up really well like really, really well, that you can do that and trust it accurately without going, that's not quite right.
Yeah.
But for that qualitative piece as well, like that goals and sort of challenges thing, I always say, like, stick a couple of extra fields in your CRM and make, what are your goals, what are your challenges this year, and just get people to fill it in, and then that creates all of your marketing content, your collateral from all your consultants who are out there and doing it, and like that what I was saying before about touch points and like how do you make people want to hear from you. Going back to the sort of universe strategy analogy, like, so if you think about, you got your big outer space bit with all your rockets bombing about, then the next bit or a part of it then is like your orbit. So you've got your planet is your sort of your branding, your website, which I suppose will sort of a bit out of order, but we'll come back to. But then the thing that goes around that is everybody needs to have an orbit. And an orbit is, the idea is that these people and these contacts, these clients, these candidates are circling you. You can see them and they can see you. They're not landing on your planet yet because they're not ready to necessarily buy from you. But you need that layer of community or orbit or something that's going around like that. Because that is, everyone talks about ROI and metrics and how to target market, and that's a really, really good one. Like, how big is my community? How big is my orbit? How many people are in my orbit that have said they want to hear from us? So this isn't number of people in my CRM whose details I have. This is people who have opted in to hear from us. And like, that's really hard. Like, that's a really hard idea to get your head around. And it takes a bit of time and a bit of investment. But like, we worked quite closely with someone who was in-house with the business for about 8-9 months. And we created loads of content. But the content we created, obviously we wanted to get leads and stuff from it, but it's all about creating that group of people who are in your orbit. And like, everything was about that. Download this, sign up to our newsletter, sign up to our community, whatever it is. And a couple of hundred people signed up within about 6-7 months, and it was graft and it was effort. But like, that's a couple of hundred people have all said, yeah, we'll hear from you because we liked that thing you downloaded, and we're happy to hear from you in future. Now, the trick then is not to piss them off and start sending them loads of shit stuff and just being like, here's a job, or here's all our jobs, or this is all our jobs.
Or pulling the trigger too early, right? And going, oh, right, yeah, they're in, right? You gotta, it's sort of, you're not spearfishing. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to kind of cultivate this. You're trying to bring them in. It's like kind of, there's a few green shoots showing from the seeds that I planted. The carrots are ready. Pull them out. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then be disappointed when the carrots are that little, and you're like, well, of course they are.
But then I think that's why it's important to have, as well as having a marketing strategy, it's also important to have a sales strategy, which a lot of companies don't necessarily have. They have get vacancies at like all costs and like just get stuck in and just pick it up where you can. And for me, in a perfect world, you sort of pre-sales bit is all your marketing bit, and it'd be brilliant if a recruitment company was started up which had a marketing team that was as big as, if not bigger than, its sales team, because that could then in theory do proper paid ads, could do proper outreach, could do proper like cadences and funnels and all that sort of stuff. And then when sales come in, that's when they can actually convert the sales. They're not having to go to completely cold people and warm them up to the point where they might be interested in the sale and then do that. The issue is that the barrier to entry in recruitment is so low, and it's so easy to set up, and it's so easy to actually, the old ways of in inverted commas, that were, when I got into it like 10 years ago, of working, which is like battering the phones, will still work. You'll just have to batter the phones a bit harder. But like, so you can still, I'm not saying that like, I don't want to be like an anti-sales guy, an anti-phone guy, an anti-cold call guy, or any of that stuff. Because like, get stuck in, absolutely have this strategy. I'm just saying that the stuff that we do, if you employ it properly and first, and be marketing led, makes your life a lot easier. Because like, it's getting harder, and it's getting, and the way that it's going to get to a point eventually where you can't email people en masse with B2B because you'll get a massive fine slapped on you. You can't cold call people because, like, I know there's lots of things on LinkedIn about this new Apple thing where it's like it's going to screen your calls for AI and stuff like that. Will it kill cold calling? No. Will it make cold calling harder? It will. Of course it will.
That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, exactly. Does it, like, Does it mean that only, oh yeah, well, no, because I'm really good at cold calling. I'm just going to do all this and I'm going to use it in a way. Like, people are clever animals. Like, you'll figure out ways to get around it and do interesting things and get through it. But like,
Yeah.
where's that going to push everyone? It's going to push everyone to LinkedIn. It's going to push everyone to social. You're going to have to stand out on social. How do you do that? It's marketing, right? You need a good personal brand, right? You need to do things interestingly, like video, do it well, send voice notes, do them well, have good images, and just that is the way it is an inevitability that is the way it's going. And then when LinkedIn stops being as easy to use, which it inevitably will do, and they make it more and more pay to play, we're going to end up on paid ads, and we're going to end up in a marketing led world, which is then going to be like every other fucking industry that does it like that anyway.
Yeah.
So why not, like, what I'm saying here is, like, make the jump, be brand led.
Well, why not see what works elsewhere and then be like, right, let me employ those tactics, right? Look, we all get caught up in buying tech as recruitment businesses, and we're always looking at things like, Make.com, Apollo, there's this. How many of those businesses employ SDR and cold calling teams versus how many of those businesses entirely focus on kind of paid ads and ad campaigns and word of mouth and affiliate campaigns and franchise models and partnership models, because they work. And I think it's only a matter of time before the recruitment industry sort of starts taking notice and be like, actually, there are probably better ways for us to do this. How many of us are offering clients that we've placed with in a particular niche? How many times are we offering them kickbacks or referral fees or something to entice them to help spread the message? We don't. It's just not a done thing. We'll ask for candidate referrals all the time, and we'll offer to pay for candidate referrals. But for some reason, we put clients on a pedestal, whereas clients are the ones that are paying. They're the paying customer. Little kind of things where you've got to go, what works elsewhere? How do we employ that in our industry? But okay, so you've got your universe model. You've got all these rocket ships flying about, and they're the people that you want to reach, and you want to kind of really entice them into your orbit, so that actually they're circling your planet. They're interested. Oh, that's quite interesting.
Yeah,
and they might see something, hear something, be told about something that encourages them to come and land on your planet.
Yeah, that's the idea. But then, when you can see them and they're in your orbit, then in theory you should have a bit of technology, a bit of something that at least allows you to see what they're interacting with and how close they're coming. And to your earlier point, like, don't pull the carrot out too quickly, because once they cross like a certain lead scoring threshold, that's when sales go, right, they're an MQL. You can get, you get in touch because they've been on the case, they've downloaded a case study page, they've looked at this, they've been here, they've done that, they've engaged with X, Y, and Z. Like, that's what, that's
this person is ready to do something.
Yeah, but this step, I mean, I've sort of done it slightly out of order, because the place we're typically start is that idea of that planet, which is, if we're thinking about outside looking in, these rockets in the universe, you can see you and your planet, and your planet is like, that's your brand, and that's, going right back to what we said at the start, like, that is how you want to, if you didn't know anything about your business and you went on your website, would you get the nuances of what your business is actually like? Question. Or could you replace the logo on your website with the logo of one of your competitors or another one, and it all just like look and sound and feel the same? And is it then actually just coming down to the skill of your individual consultants to just be a better salesperson? In which case, you bring in a knife to a knife fight, whereas you can actually get a massive leg up and really articulate what it is that you do properly and put that time into, to what you said, storytelling, articulating who you are, getting your brand right, and attracting the right people. I think, it's really...
Just to touch on your analogy, that's imagine again the universe. You've got another person somewhere, be it on one of the spaceships up here, looking through a telescope at your planet.
That's the point.
Now, do you want to be a hospitable planet that's got life, plants, water, energy, or do you want to be, a dead planet like Mars? From outside looking in, does this look like a fucking graveyard?
Yeah, well,
it looks like and feels like a graveyard. I ain't going there. What's the point?
Yeah, and it's and whether it's a graveyard or whether it's just something that looks like bland.
Yeah, because vacancies are all out of date, or it's all generic stuff.
Generic, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Really, like
generic kind of. I don't know. I can't tell the difference between this planet, because they all look and feel the same.
Yeah. Whereas what I want to do is, what I would, in my opinion, what I would like to be doing is, if I'm looking through my little telescope on my rocket and I'm looking at different planets, then in theory I should look at some planets and go, oh, that's not for me.
Yeah.
Like, it looks good, but it's not for me, and that's what your brand should do as well.
Qualify out.
I find it fascinating with like the psychology of recruitment people and recruiters in general, because they are the most resilient people, and it's such a resilient job. But they are more than happy, and I've sort of said this on loads of things before, so if you've heard it before, then my apologies. But they're delighted. They find it funny if you pick up the phone and then someone says, "Look, hey mate, fuck off. I never want to talk to recruiters. I hate recruiters. You lot of scum." Like, wah, 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 wah. Hang up. They'll go, haha, and then ring somebody else, and then do whatever else, and just like crack on. And it's like a bit of thing around the office. But then they're scared to put a LinkedIn post out because no one will like it, or because no one will comment on it, or because no one commented on the last one and that made them look silly, or that made them feel small or daft, or like, it's like the two need to link up. But it goes the same way for websites. Like, you almost go into it like fighting scared, whereby the default position is to think, oh, who am I going to upset? Who am I going to piss off? Who am I going to like put off with this? But in actual fact, like, most recruitment businesses, or even take it down to like consultant level, well, maybe not, yeah, but most recruitment businesses like make quite a lot of money from placements. They don't need that many clients to do really, really well. If a good client, you're making 5 or 6 placements with a year, and your average fee, and this is obviously perm, but you can extrapolate for contract, but or temp, but if you're making 5 or 6 placements a year, and you're making 10k a pop, like, that's not, you don't need that many clients to be a multi-million-pound business.
No.
So actually, by doubling down on those people you do want to attract, as opposed to worrying about putting other people off, is way more impactful.
Absolutely. I have I shoot the theory all the time, right? Of it's not people buy from people, it's people buy from people like them, or people buy from people they like. That's it. So there's a likability factor or a relatability factor. So if your brand and your culture, and that extends further out than just people buying. It's interacting. It's people coming to work for you. People you want to attract. You almost want to qualify out the people that are going to be problem makers. These guys are not going to pay their invoice. They're going to go multiple agency. We like to work retained. These guys are not going to work retained. We like to take exclusive roles. These guys are not going to give us an exclusive role. And we almost have this thing of like, no, the website needs to be welcoming to all, and then we will qualify throughout a process. And that's almost too dangerous, because you kind of go, listen, I don't want an influx of inbound inquiries for people that are looking for a recruitment service. What I want is people that are looking for my recruitment service, because what my recruitment service is this. So if you meet that criteria, hey, let's talk. If you're not willing to do these things, we want a full detailed brief. I want to come on site and I want to understand the role. I want to meet your teams. I want to understand the culture. I want to understand the actual day ins and day out of this position. And before I even get started, I take a third of the fee up front. That is my process. Now, okay, are you going to get 100 leads that month? No. Are you going to get 2 that are like, look, I've read how you work. I'm fine with that. I want to work with you. Yeah. Well, would you not rather have that than to go, well, I've had to ring 150 people and be told to fuck off by 140, and then I managed to get something out of it?
Definitely. And I think that, there's some things that some people, and it's fine, thinking about how you want to stand out and to solve the right problems for people. Like us, we are not, we're not the cheapest, what we do, at all. We're probably up there with the most expensive, and the reasons for that is many. We back ourselves. I think we do mint stuff. Like, we've got really good people. Like, we invest in them and everything. Blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But so we don't ever go in and say to people, our clients, like, look, we're really cheap. We're cheap. But I don't think there's anything wrong with going in and being cheap. And if you are cheap and you're happy to be cheap, and that's the way you sell yourselves, and lean into it, like, absolutely, because there'll be loads of clients out there who love that. And there's a bit
and then you'll have the cost-driven purchasers and people, right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why there's a brand market out there for Dacias and MGs. Yeah. And there's a reason why we see them on the roads, because these are cost-conscious people. They're not driven by brand. They're not driven by prestige. They're not driven by, I like Japanese cars, or I like this. They're purely driven by price.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why when you search for anything, you have the choice to go, do you want to go by price? Do you want to go by recommendation? Because we accept that exists. And if that is your only USP, and that is your ICP, is that cost-focused person, you're absolutely right. Lean into it.
Yeah.
You should be going all in on that.
And stick it out, and you never, ever see a recruitment company do it, ever.
No.
And
No,
and I
they
wouldn't
always
mind
have
it.
it as a shameful thing. Oh well,
Yeah,
right
yeah,
now
yeah.
I'm
But
having
like,
to work at 10%. Well, no, you're choosing to work at 10%, and you're okay working at 10%. So that's fine. So tell
we're fine to
worry
make,
about it.
but guess what? The service is a 10% service as well. Like, don't worry about it. We're not going to give you that. That we're not going to fly to you and come and see you and do all that and like white glove treatment. But like, we'll have a good crack at finding you people for a bit, and then we'll
Yeah,
do 10% contingent. And yeah, but anyway, yeah. But that's all part of it. And like, more power to anybody who wants to do that and stand out in that way, because it doesn't always have to be like super premium. It's just all about who you actually want to target. And that sort of goes back to that idea of that rocket and making your planet appeal to that rocket. And then the idea being that, like, from your orbit, like, yeah, you're just keeping people in the orbit, because that's really important. Because a lot of the time, the next bit is like the two types of content that we tend to talk about that you can create. And the mistake that people will often make when they're doing their marketing is that they start here. So they start with, they sort of, we speak with a lot of companies who, like, they'll go, the website shit. We just want to do some content. The website's shit. Don't worry about the website. We'll put it to one side. It's like, all right. And then, so they haven't spoken to their audience. They aren't sorting their website out, so it's very difficult to convert. There's no way of tracking them in their orbit, but they've got a podcast.
yeah,
Or they've got, like, they've done a white paper or a download, or they've written an article, or they've done something like that. And the reason that they're doing that is because they've got a marketing exec who's 23, and they've got a consultant who's 26 but has billed 300 grand last year, so is like pretty high up the food chain. And he says, I want to do this, and the marketing exec goes, okay, cool, we'll do that. And then they do it, and it takes ages, and it's hard, and it doesn't work, and nothing happens from it, and their marketing is shit. So, like, yeah, so there's two types of content that we talk about. So, like, the first one is just like push content. So this is the idea that if we think about your planet analogy, and we'll give you a graphic to like stick up for people actually watching this.
yeah.
Like, push is stuff that we're sending out, we're pushing out. So
these are signals you're sending out from your planet to let people know we exist, we're here, and
and it's typically stuff, it's outbound sort of comms. And this is traditionally the stuff that recruiters are doing all the time, like cold email, not warm email, because that's your orbit. Cold email, stuff that's being sent out like that. LinkedIn posts, social media, that's stuff that you're chucking out there. There's an argument that cold calls could be into that. There's an argument that video messages can be into that. There's an argument that voice notes would be into that. And actually, like, if they're all included in your marketing strategy and you have your marketing hat on when you're looking at it, then that's part of your, like, that's part of your growth strategy as opposed to sales or your marketing strategy. Then that's, they're the things that are going out. But what goes in those things? Well, the other side of the content is like what we talk about as like the pull content, which is the campaigns, like pillar pieces that you put out there, and you want to make people pull them into your orbit. So, for example, that might be a webinar. So we're going to be hosting a webinar, and it's going to be me interviewing Nitin and the guys from Sourceflow, who I mentioned, and the guys from Pager. And it's going to be all about like the future of RecTalk, and with some quite sound people that we quite like. So that's my pull content. That's my like thing, and that's
the kind of, and look, we're doing this. If it's of interest to you, come along.
Yeah. So
come closer to the orbit. Come closer into the community.
Well, yeah. So, so anyone who signs up for that webinar, so obviously the benefits of doing that are like, anyone who signs up for that webinar is in my orbit. Bang, they're straight around there because they've agreed to receive marketing comms and do all that sort of stuff for me. There will be an immediate payoff, because in that webinar, I'm going to talk about the fact that Kitto are fucking mint. And then at the end of it, loads of people are going to get in touch with me immediately and go, right, well, we want to do marketing with you. But even if not, they're in my orbit. But how do I promote that? Like, well, the stuff to get people to come to that should be the content of my push content, and that's what's going out.
Yeah.
So, like, I'm promoting my webinar with LinkedIn posts. I'm inviting people to it with voice notes. I'm sending out cold emails to my aforementioned ICP, which, by the way, my ICP is going to be, leaders of recruitment businesses, 25 heads and up, who are probably going to be investing in RecTalk, which will probably be relevant to, you guys as well. So that, you start to see then that's when it is like a cohesive, like,
and that then leans into the 20 push points kind of conversation. that leans then into the I want my guys on the phones, or I want them doing outreach, right? And you go, well, there you go then. Get them doing that kind of outreach. Rather than constantly picking up the phone and saying, oh, are you hiring this week? Or I've got another candidate for you. I know you said you weren't hiring, but you don't want to miss out on this one. You kind of go, well, there you go. You've got more of a reason to call now. You've got shit going on that you can tell them about. And that you're not talking about recruitment. You're giving them something of value so that they walk away and go, well, that was useful. And when I'm recruiting, guess who I'm going to think of? The useful company.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing is that I think that as an industry, like, it's great. It's great when things work really, really well.
My alarm going off. Sorry, mate.
No worries.
That's the
it's great when things work really, really well, obviously.
Yeah.
And it's useful when things don't work at all, because that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But I think as an industry, it can punish you when things work a bit, and it can, because it just sort of wets your whistle, and you're chasing it and going back, and what we're left with now, because that that thing that you mentioned there, we're not hiring, mate, we don't want that candidate. How about this candidate? No, we're not hiring, mate, I don't want that candidate. If you do that enough times, you get the right person at the right time, eventually someone will hire it.
And then you go around telling everyone it works.
Yeah, because it has on that occasion. But what you don't look at is the return on effort that's gone into it to make that happen. And that's what, that's what I mean about looking at it through a lens of sort of sales enabled, marketing led approaches. Because what you're doing in theory is just increasing the likelihood of the conversations that you have of being a high quality, of people who are at least open to hearing from you. If it's people who've been, open rates are pretty dead on emails now, but if you've got people who are watching 2 or 3 webinars that you've hosted over the last 6 months, then someone's and you get in touch from your business to them, it's very unlikely they're going to say, look, I'm absolutely, totally uninterested in you like you are. Because you've earned that right to a conversation because you've added that value into them.
Well, that's it. There's a value exchange there, right? And you've paid into, I call it the emotional bank account. You've deposited enough into that emotional bank account now to start making withdrawals. If there's absolutely nothing in there in forms of deposits, and you start going along asking for a withdrawal, well, very few are going to go, yeah, okay, let's have this emotional bank account go into overdraft. Because actually, I've got a need right now. But most people, they ain't got a need. Most people don't want to use you as an agency at that given point in time. And they're entitled to have that opinion. They're entitled to not use you as an agency. What your job is as a recruitment consultancy is to convince them or show them or demonstrate to them that actually when you are in need, we're the ones you want to come to.
Yeah.
Not every time, but the times where you do need us, you know that we are on point, we know our stuff. And in the meantime, we've delivered you a whole range of valuable insights, information, community and value, so that you respect us enough to go, actually, if I'm going to an agency, I'm going to them. I might go out to 2 or 3, but they're definitely on the list.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's on you then to, that's the sales bit.
Then you can start winning the grace, and you can go further up the food chain and that kind of thing. Yeah, but because I think it's desperate times for a lot of businesses. They haven't got the cash flow or the runway to kind of move to a model like this. But I think if anyone's listening that have got the, they're seeing that the old guard and the old way isn't working, and this resonates and makes sense, just make you'll get a return on this very quickly, very, very quickly. I'm a massive advocate of it. I don't do any outbound at all for RecTools. I don't have anybody that does outbound for me. I've never done email marketing campaigns. All I ever did was I'm going to stay in my lane, I'm going to do my thing, show the world what I'm doing, and eventually people will come along and they'll go, actually, yeah, can we get involved? Yeah, that sounds interesting. I know about this, I feel of it, I see it. Yeah, I want to get involved in this community that you're doing. This thing you're doing, I want to be part of that. So, and that's in a very competitive space that I'm in.
Yeah, and just to push back a little bit on a thing you said just there then, which is very counterintuitive of me, but when you said it'll work very quickly or very, very quickly, it might not. But what I'm saying is that it will work as quickly as a recruiter picking up the phone on their own going completely cold.
But this is what I mean when I say very quickly. I know from conversations
which isn't very fast.
No, we need results. We need results. Yeah. I'm like, but you're not getting them now.
No, yeah. And
you spent all week on a BD campaign on dialing out, and still didn't pick up any vacancies? Would you not rather spend that week doing cool, interesting, fun shit that other people are going to look at and go, shit, that sounds really cool? No, and still not pick up a vacancy by the end of the week, but actually you've planted seeds. Rather than ripping up the ground looking for potatoes that might have been planted a few years back, you're now planting seeds and you're going, right, now I've got to wait, I've got to nurture this. I'm going to move on to this patch now. It's a difference between, we always have this thing in recruitment of like, I need hunters or I need farmers and that kind of thing. Right now, most recruitment businesses need to be gardeners. What they need to be doing is gardening, not hunting, not farming, gardening. You need to be planting seeds. You need to be trimming back plants. You need to be, nurturing. You need to be, investing time and energy in growing these things, not just, okay, I need to farm as quickly. This is producing. Let me just keep farming, and I need to send my hunters out there to bring me back some meat. That world's dead. That is gone.
And I agree. And I think that one thing that I think is a really, and again, it's like, it's like looking at things through a lens of return on effort is important. But then one thing that you mentioned there is when you said about cash flow, companies don't necessarily have the cash flow to invest because times are hard, and I get that. But like, think about what you're actually spending your money on. Yeah. And actually people often don't include headcount and staff in that. So look at the particularly in recruitment, because headcount's such an asset and is like seen as your way to.
It's a vanity thing, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, it's just the thing that you do is you hire people to grow, and that's what you do, and that's how you measure it. And that's changing a little bit with some, but it's still prevalent across the industry. So they'll look at their costs and what they spend, and it will go on things like marketing, it'll go on things like tech, and it'll go on things like HR, and it'll go on things like compliance and finance and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then what they don't account for is all the money they spend on people who don't work out.
Yeah.
Like, what's a good, like,
well, price is low.
It must be 40% is decent, like good.
Yeah.
If
you got to consider price is law, right? It's very, very prevalent and true in recruitment in the 25% of your workforce is going to be doing the majority of the work. Close to 90% of the revenue is going to be generated by 25% of the workforce. The rest of them are coasting and are leaving, and new people are coming in, and they're training. They're not quite ready. They're in difficult markets. That's the case.
Definitely, but even I'm talking about as well. I'm talking about that like right at the start of it, like you're hiring people into it, and right, okay, look, we're gonna do, say with type businesses we work with, like say we're a 50 head business, right?
Yeah.
We've got a cohort of 5 people coming into the business.
Yeah.
When they're coming in, we know that 3 of those in 6 months won't be here.
Yeah, and we've accepted that.
We know, we know that. That's fine. But they're coming in on a starting salary of 27 grand, say, something like that, if we're in somewhere nice like London. So, right, let's bang that up to 30 grand for NI, and that's their cost to us. So we've said that we're going to we know for a fact that we're going to be paying people like, hang on, let's do the maths.
2.5, isn't it?
So 2.5 grand a month. So those people are costing me 2.5 grand a month. I know 3 of those people I'm going to pay for at least 4 months each. They're not going to make me any money. They're going to disappear, and then I'm going to be left with the 2. Of those 2, one of them might hit target this year. Like, just on those 3 people that you're paying 2.5 grand a month for 4 months.
7.5 grand a month over the 4 months. Yeah, that's 30 grand gone.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So that 30 grand is you invest 30 grand in you give, you give us 2.5 grand a month for 12 months, and you're getting something. You plant, like, as you said, you're getting something. You're planting them seeds. You're doing all that over a consistent period of time, and like. Maybe there's room to, maybe then there's room to also spend more money on your and time and effort on your employer brand, which is another massive area for recruitment companies that we do quite a bit of work in, to be fair. But like, again, which is all about selling the dream of who you are. And again, exactly the same thing, putting clients and candidates off, put people off who don't want to work for you. Yeah. Like one brand that comes up, we do a lot of employer brand work with big companies. And we've done some stuff we're really proud of, right? One brand that always comes up is Interex, right? And like, I know that like Interex, we don't work with Interex. I don't really know anybody at Interex. But like, I admire them because I think that, like, love them or loathe them, you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
And you go on their website, you go on that employer brand thing, and you know what you're getting. You know, I'm going to like, if I come here, I'm going to have to graft. If I do well, I'm going to make loads of money, but it's going to be really hard work. And I'm not going to like necessarily get, a huge amount of love.
Yeah, and I might not enjoy it.
Yeah,
Exactly. If my reasons for leaving are I don't get, it's not a good work environment, my boss is on my back all the time, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing a great job of qualifying those people out. So listen, don't even bother wasting.
And that's great. And similar, like another example, like Enzo Tech Group went viral for that video a few years ago, right?
Yeah.
They're all young people dressed up to the nines, loads of makeup on, look really slick, really nice
in the office,
real bougie incentives, going out all the time, like absolutely that. Like, but like fair play to them because, I messaged again, not a company we work with, full disclosure, like. But like they're just two examples of like companies that know who they are and know what they're doing. Everybody else does as well. Mm-hmm. And like for all the people that I speak with who might be a bit like, well, I don't like that, or like that shit, or that looks like whatever, they'll get loads of applications because like they go, yeah, I want to wear a nice suit and work with loads of like beautiful young people and like try and make loads of money and go to Ibiza and go to Vegas.
That's it.
There's a lot. So it's the exact same thing. And like again, like if companies. It's the exact same process for hiring people into your business as it is for acquiring those candidates and those clients. Sowing those seeds, giving that impression before they join so they know what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah.
And I bet that those companies with like strong employer brands or at least strong brands of people who know what they're on about, I bet they have a lower
churn rate,
failure rate.
I would imagine so.
Rate.
Yeah, I would imagine
because they're getting out of, whereas you get a lot of people, a lot of businesses, recruitment businesses, who've got a, have a great career with us. Have a great career with us.
Yeah.
Here's a little video of the incentive we did last year. Here's a list of our benefits.
Yeah.
Here's an interview with someone who had a really nice time last year and did well and has been with us for 2 or 3 years. Like, that's not an employer brand. That's just like a list of things that happen in your business.
Mm-hmm.
And so you look at it and go, oh, that looks nice. And then you come into it and then all of a sudden you've got someone shouting at you to make 100 calls a day and you'd be like, fuck this.
Yeah, where the fuck was this video?
Yeah, exactly. So,
it's you're right.
Same thing. But yeah, so I think that's if people are looking for ways to spend money on us, which I highly recommend they do, I'd say stop hiring loads of graduates that you absolutely know aren't going to make it.
Yeah, and give you that money instead.
Yeah,
watch you start building out that universe and that ecosystem where you've got your planet and it looks good from the outside, and you've got yourself a nice orbit, and you've got yourself a nice, the outreach is there, the inreach is there, and then all these people that you want to attract, they'll find you, they'll see you, and they will eventually, when the time's right, come to you. Yeah, we've got to move away from this sort of like top of funnel mentality where just need to keep filling the funnel, It's not a funnel anymore. It is cyclical, right? People will look at something, interact with something, and then not buy. And you might not hear from them again for 6 months. And then when they're ready to buy, they'll be like, well, I'm only going to go there because actually I'm in that ecosystem already. I'll just go back in and buy it, right? Case in point, when ASOS do things like free delivery for a year, that's not because they want people to go, oh, well, I'm going to need to order everything every year, like every week because I need to get my money's worth. It's because it's like, well, all right, I might come back, and if I do come back, I'll go there first.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. It's that keeping people in the loop. So, mate, this has been fantastic. Really appreciate your time on this one. Sorry it's taken so long to get over the line and get done.
No worries. It's my fault, not anything. No worries. And as I say, like, I hope it's a useful thing, and like just thinking about those components, because if you are doing all those things, you start with the end in mind with those clients, and you make sure your website looks and sounds like you, and your branding looks and sounds like you, and that you're adding value and giving yourself those opportunities to reach out with interesting things to talk to your audience about based on their goals and their challenges. Then you can't really go that far wrong. And if we see it, like, it works, and we'd love to help more and more businesses do that, as and when they want us, as long as they do recruitment, because that's all we do.
That's all you do. No, mate, appreciate that. Thank you very much. Once again, mate, from me, congratulations on heading into year 2, on the phenomenal growth and all that sort of stuff. We love working with you guys. We love recommending you guys. Guys, that's all from us. New episodes drop every Wednesday and every Friday. Thank you for liking, sharing, subscribing, and doing all the cool shit that you guys do to keep us growing at the size that we are. We're officially the world's now largest podcasting channel in the recruitment sector. And that's down to you guys. Thank you very much. We'll see you again next time.
Cheers, mate.